Welcome to Toot Your Own Horn Music Matters. Today I am here with the lovely Kristen Spiridon. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So great. I can't wait for you to share your story. Tell us, how did you choose your instrument and make a career out of this? Can't wait to hear it.
It's an interesting story. So I actually started on violin. That was my first instrument in third grade. Back in New Jersey, you got to choose a string instrument first. So I started with violin. That was terrible, absolutely terrible. I mean, we're talking about the worst sounds you would ever hear. So I decided to quit after the first year, and I saw a bunch of flutes, clarinets. They were all playing a concert by some of the older students. And I said to my parents, I want to play clarinet next year. And my mom and dad were like, I don't know if you're a musician after what we just heard. And my stepfather, actually, was a music teacher. And he said, it's a different family. Have her give it a shot. So I chose clarinet. And my mom said that the first two notes on the clarinet were better than a whole year of violin. So I stuck with that all through high school, and then continued on to double major at the Peabody Conservatory with Steve Barta, and then a master's in an artist diploma with Richie Hawley at Cincinnati. And then just this year decided to go back and get my doctorate. So it's been a long road, but now, because of all of that, I'm professor of clarinet at Georgia Southern and principal clarinet of the Savannah Philharmonic. So I'm very fortunate for that violin not working out.
How did you go from two notes working on the clarinet to thinking this was the love of your life?
It was one of those things where you love an instrument if you put it together and you just can't stop playing it. And that was the case. I was okay in school, but clarinet was different. It's like I looked forward to practicing. I looked forward to learning new things. And that's kind of how I knew I wanted to continue. There was no other career consideration, honestly.
Hmm. Were you a good student?
In high school, I was okay. And it seems like every degree got better. And by the time I got to the doctorate, I got a 4.0. But I was dyslexic and I didn't realize it until college. So I think I would have done a little better without that. But a decent student. I worked hard. But music was always just what I thought about and what I wanted to do.
Hmm. Was your family an influence over that? Was the fact that your stepfather involved in music, were they supporters? Who supported you early?
Really, my whole family did. My mom was a staunch supporter, especially. She encouraged me and, was somebody that paid for lessons. My stepdad understood things and was able to explain to my mother and father more about the music industry. But I had a very supportive family, and I'm very thankful for that because it does take a village, really. The music industry does take a village, and I'm very thankful for them.
Hmm. Did you have a lot of friends in band?
I had a few in high school. I feel like as I got older in college, they were my people because they kind of understood a little bit better. I definitely had friends, I would say at other high schools more so, that understood me and supported me. Yeah, I mean, people that do music tend to understand music a little bit more, and you tend to click with those people.
Hmm. Did you have any opportunities to step outside the industry? Like, there was never a hesitation. It was what I'm hearing you say. Never a hesitation that music was for you.
Never a hesitation. My college students always ask the question, if you could have done anything else, what would you have done? And I was like, well, the only thing I can think of is maybe be a lawyer. But, you know, I mean, I just think music was always that central path. Um, there was really nothing else I wanted to do. And teaching is very valuable. So if maybe music wouldn't have worked out, something in the education field. My mother, father, stepmother, and stepfather were all educators. So, it seemed very natural.
Yeah, very natural to you for sure. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about the industry versus like other professions and how you think people perceive it and how you, because you're such a strong figure and so well recognized in, geographically and just in general because of the internet, right? People know who you are. And I'm wondering, outside the music community, how do you think musicians are perceived and how do you think we can shape that or decide with all the things you're doing that you're influencing that?
It's a very interesting question that you ask because, people see that I'm in the symphony and they say, wow, what a fun, easy career. And honestly, music can't be farther from the truth, the easy. I mean, it can be very fun, but there's also a lot of work and a lot of stress. So people have to understand that there's a tremendous amount of discipline that goes into the music field. And sometimes it's thankless. So it helps you be very resilient as a person. It helps you have that thick skin and it helps you acquire the work ethic that you need. I wish people would take a step back and really look at everything that it takes to put together a concert or to assemble a big production, because there's a lot of moving parts to that I think people just don't get to see. So the assumption is that the career is easy and fun, but as fun as it is, and as lucky as I am, it's not easy. It's actually very difficult, and it takes a lot of skill, luck, and um, support to be able to pursue this career successfully. And I, as a teacher and educator, try to do that for my own students, and they have to understand what the industry entails and also their families. It's important that the families also understand, but they know that I'll be that support system for them as well. So if I had to talk to somebody that is not in the industry, it's important for them to know that face value, it looks one way, but there's so many moving parts and so much work that goes into being a successful musician.
And our industry, yet in so many ways, is unfortunately failing. And it is on the steepest decline it has been on in 50 years. And I'm wondering what could what could we do or what other support systems do we need, do you think, to make more connection to the outside world so more people become a part of it? Because I feel like we're very insulated. I feel like we work in this very small microcosm of support that we've needed to build to be able to sustain, and yet we need to be strong enough to step outside of that.
I think a lot of the organizations that are more successful than some of the others that are struggling is open-mindedness and not just doing the same things. Sometimes if you program a certain way, or you only do classical, or you only do classical and romantic, you're going to attract the same audience. I think we need to vary that up. And I think a successful season requires some classical, some pops, some playing with movies, because you have to get the younger generation aware of what our industry is. And maybe Mozart isn't appealing to them. Maybe E.T. with film is. Maybe Star Wars with film is. So it's getting these people in the door first, and then they can kind of experience what orchestra and what the music world is like. So I think we need to be more targeted in programming for different kinds of audiences. Some programming is going to cater to older individuals, some for middle age, some for our youth, and also making it more accessible. I think a lot of the people that are attracting the younger generation to music, they're offering student tickets, they're offering concerts. We did a concert with Sutton Foster and Ben Folds. And those are names that people, they love to go to those concerts. So I think if you're programming just for one kind of genre of music, that's where you're going to suffer. I think in order to get people in the door, there has to be some variation. And different musicians are going to favor playing different things, but that's just the practicality and the truth of the matter.
Mhm. It seems like when people start to play a wind instrument, similar to what you said, there's often a great emotional connection whether you're very good at it or not, right? Like sometimes you aren't, but people still enjoy the feeling of blowing into an instrument and the physical touch and the opportunity to have a voice without words, right? Those are all really powerful
Correct.
things. How do you think adults can become more engaged in this activity when they either haven't experienced it in a long time or they see it as being something outside the realm of what they know, meaning it's an outside activity that doesn't relate to them in some way? How do we fix that?
I think a lot of communities need to acquire opportunities for these people. Community ensembles, the education department of orchestras setting up things not only for high school students and college students, but members of the community reaching out and having concerts and letting people learn and play. I think the mistake a lot of people make is just targeting the youth. But having taught many adult students over the years, there's that want and desire and that need, and they have that appreciation. So we have to make something tangible and available to them to be able to play. So thinking of a community concert that's either ongoing or special events, that's something that we can do. Um, but we have to leave it open ended and give them the opportunity to join different outlets. So, and if they've never played before, how do we let young students play an instrument for the first time? There's kind of like those petting zoos. I think some older adult students, that's not offered to them. They don't get to do that. So going to a music store or going to an orchestra and saying, well, is there any way that I can listen or try this? Because they might like the sound of an instrument, but they're not educated in a way that they know what it is. And having that support, they can kind of find their thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that in running all these podcasts, one of the most common things I hear from everybody is they made an impulsive decision and it pretty much was impulsive. I liked the way that instrument looked. I saw, saw someone playing it. I saw it on a poster, right? It's like very basic things that has caused them now for decades to be involved in this activity, right? And so
Right.
it seems like such a small thing to introduce people to if you can, you know, herd the cats, right? If you can get them all in
Absolutely.
place, that people can really relate to it if we can find more ways to be open around that, right?
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
And with your kids, when you teach, how do you deal with all the diverse interests? How do you harness that?
The thing that's important as a professor and just general educator to know is every student is an individual. And I think a lot of teachers just try to produce blank concepts and teach the same way. And you can have similar fundamentals for students, but you have to teach to the individual. So having one student at Georgia Southern who loves to play a lot of jazz. So I gear his rep more towards, Gershwin and things to that extent. And then somebody else just loves modern music. So I make a curriculum suiting them to be exposed to as much of that as possible. So you have to listen to the student first, because if you don't listen, you're not going to be successful with that person because they have certain musical goals, just like we all did. And even though they might not be traditional, you can't shut them down from that. So you have to build a curriculum around them being successful and still, sliding some classics in there and some fundamentals in there here and there. We're kind of letting them guide their way. And as long as it's at the difficulty level that they should be among the 4 years or the 4 years in high school with me, that's how they're going to be successful. And that's how they're going to be effective clarinet students that turn into, if they're music education, effective educators. And they're going to understand that every student is an individual and they're not going to go into the world thinking, well, it's just a one way road.
Mhm. Yeah, when I think of you, I think just leader. I just leader, leader, leader. You're just such a leader. You're an inspiration for others. You are very hardworking in everything you want to achieve. You do, and you manage multiple things. How do you think that students can develop more of that? That more musicians can have more leadership qualities? Because I think to break out of our need for, not that we don't need the support, but it takes a village, but that village needs to start touching communities that we don't touch, right? And how do we get to those communities, and how do we get our students to do that? How do you think we can instill more of that kind of proactiveness? Because I feel like anything you set your mind to, you'll do, and I'm not sure all musicians are wired that way.
They're not. They're not. The first thing that you have to do as an educator is lead by example. So that's why I post so much on social media, Facebook, because they have to be aware of, if they're going to be successful, what it takes to really get everything that you personally want done. So leading by example, showing them examples, posting about all the concerts and the diverse opportunities that we have as musicians. So educators need to be doing that, so their students just know that we don't sit at home once we go home from the college that day. Um, Another one is in studio classes, targeting certain topics that they're aware of, understanding what career paths are available to BAs, BMs, Bachelor of Music Education, and understanding that you don't have to be in the New York Bill to be successful. You can garner your own path, and offering different kinds of opportunities for them, and them hearing about different careers and what it takes is something that's going to get them out there. Also, if given the opportunity, me being a symphony player, um, whenever we need substitute musicians, if I think they're ready, throwing them in there, giving them that opportunity to be like, here you go. Here's the music, study it, listen to it, and you're up. Because that's the real world. And that's how you kind of, take the training wheels off and let them start experiencing the real world on their own. And that's how they're able to kind of say, oh, I love this. Oh, I need a little more time. So really, the main thing is leading by example and giving them the opportunities to lead on their own and fend for themselves in the industry will be their success story.
What's also really nice to see is that you're not fake. You'll say, I'm really tired. I've taught 8 hours and now I have to play a concert, or, like, and it's important, I think, because I do think that there is a perception among both people who are inexperienced in our sector and people who have no experience looking at our sector that it's so easy.
Oh yeah, it's dumbfounding when I hear that. And no, and somebody that maybe had one class, will come into their lesson and say, I'm so tired. And I was like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear that, because they're going to be in for a big shock in the real world. So I do tell them everything I have planned that day and then that week. And then their eyes just kind of, you know, get really big. Um, as I said, music is very difficult and it's very time consuming. And I think people need to understand that the blood, the sweat, and the tears that we as musicians put in to make the product successful and make it beautiful, is sometimes never ending. But it is so rewarding at the end of the day to be able to truly have a successful career doing something you love.
Hmm. And for that, you feel respected in your community and you feel embraced and you feel heard.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you think it takes a certain amount of accolades to get that?
I think it depends. I think it does to an extent. It takes a little while. I mean, I think in any new job, no matter how prestigious or the title, it's going to take time to garner that respect and whatnot. But yes, the main answer is yes to that.
So you're getting your doctorate and you're in a position, of course, where I'm sure anything that you do, you will find an outlet for. But there are so many students now who are getting advanced degrees and the jobs are drying up. What suggestions do you have?
Unfortunately, to keep an open mind, I think we go into music and there should be an understanding from their high school teacher or their professor that nothing is guaranteed. So with these jobs drying up and, if we're graduating, let's just say 100 people and there's 10 openings, you're going to have to be resilient and either wait for your perfect job or do a bunch of other things in time. I know some people that it took them 10, 20 years to get the job that they wanted, and they had to do some side hustles, but they did it. And that's where you see a lot of people leaving the industry. They graduate with these advanced degrees and then they go into realty or other things, which is great. I know a lot of people that do that and they're so happy. But you have to be ready to be open-minded and realize that at first, especially, you might not get the job that you want. And it's going to take some no's before you finally get that yes. So I think some teachers give a false sense of hope because they want to recruit, they want to get numbers. I'm always very honest with my students and I say this, nothing is guaranteed. I think one of the most powerful things I said in a studio class, ending, we had a career discussion. And I said, performance majors, realize that once you walk across that stage, I become your competition. They'd never really thought about it like that. And that's the first thing I thought about when I graduated Cincinnati. Richie is now my competition. So you have to have that drive. You have to have that work ethic as much as you can through school. And even if you do everything right, you might still have to be patient and do something for a little while before you get what you want. So resiliency, that's probably the key word there.
And how do you see the industry? You're a big advocate for great equipment, and you definitely promote and work with local retailers, which is really fantastic. How do you see your students working in industry as being part of that, or do you?
As far as the products that I promote, I feel they're the best. And if my students, I try to get them on that equipment for their success, not mine. Sometimes out of 20 students, there might be 18 that sound good on the equipment I play. But I'll always say, if you sound better on something else, that's what we're going to do because it's their success story I'm trying to line up. And getting them access to West Rice at Rice Clarinet Works to come to my school and actually be able to try things and say, this one doesn't work for you, but this does. Having Shedville come in, they need to experience it for themselves. I have no stake in any of that. It's just to present them with the best options possible and have just a whole layout for them to try. So as I say, every individual is different. They're going to sound different on different equipment. But just making sure they have access to it is my end goal for them. And hopefully they take it and run with it.
Do you think there are opportunities that they are more interested in now than perhaps 10 or 15 years ago in becoming a product specialist or becoming a repair technician or becoming, someone that's a music therapist? Like, do you think there are more paths for them to explore in our industry? Do you feel like
I think there are. I think when I was in school, I mean, now they have targeted repair schools you can go to study repair. There's more for music therapy. Bachelor of Arts, they're starting to target administration and get them ready. So it's not just an arts administration degree. A BA can lead to internships. I have a student doing that right now. And I think there are more opportunities to kind of guide students. It's not just performance and education anymore. And thankfully, a lot of schools are acquiring the outlets to be able to offer that to students. And the students that do go down those paths are very, very happy. So I do think there's more available. Maybe not jobs per se, but more opportunities to cultivate their own careers from it, their own businesses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's for me what the biggest step is that we just need more opportunities that feel autonomous and that people can feel like they can actually get something accomplished and not wait for somebody to die or leave. Right.
Exactly.
Because that's not it's not a very good place to stay because it doesn't make you feel good about your life and you need to find ways to move forward.
Exactly. And they are starting to learn that they can make their own path and their own career. And if they want to start look at you started your own business. And students need to understand that they don't have to box themselves into a corner. They can create their own as well.
Yeah. Well, and even at the level you're at, which is very high, you do multiple things. You play in a symphony, you teach private lessons, you're involved in so many different things, right? And so,
Oh, yes.
I think that role model itself should support a portfolio career and help more musicians understand that that's really the future. It's not the past, but it's how you're going to be successful in this industry.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. If someone was listening to this podcast and really fascinated by your story, what would you tell them to encourage them to play a wind instrument or to try to right now?
Well, it's one of those things, if they like what they hear, honestly, find if they have a symphony close to them, email the symphony. They'll get in touch with, say, the principal clarinet or the principal flute, and just have a conversation with us. And if you want to try an instrument, we will help you, give you that opportunity. Or if we don't know, if we don't have that instrument in the symphony, say a saxophone, we can be in touch with local professors, local educators that can help them. I think a lot of people don't know where to look. So music teachers, orchestral players, we will all be a resource for that. And they can take college classes. They can go back for a master's. Georgia Southern offers something after a certain age, that tuition is free, to go back. I had a student do that in his 60s. So they just have to ask. Asking is the first step. And then there will be people that want to help them. And even if they have no clue, they're like, well, I like music, but I don't know what to try. Introduce them to the different families, introduce them to the different sounds. And if they're attracted to a certain sound, you as a musician can narrow that down for them and say, I think you should try this. And it can be sometimes a process of elimination, but I think that's going to leave them very full and very satisfied. So, they don't just have to hear it on the radio. They can get answers as to what this is. And hey, can I give that a try? And the answer is absolutely, always. So figure out the sound you like, what you want to hear, and reach out to someone, even if the music world is very small. We know a lot of people, and we will find the right person for you to get you on the path that you want.
Yeah, and because it is small, even if you feel like you're on the outside and the symphony feels like too big of a step, call your local middle school, find out who the band director is, call the high school, find out who the band director is. Tell them you're of a certain age and you'd like to learn more, and they will help you. They have private lesson teachers up the yin yang. They know all kinds of people that play the
Yes,
that you're interested in, and they will introduce you into that circle and you'll meet brand new friends. Give it a try.
absolutely. And if one person doesn't email you back, try someone else. There will be somebody that will answer that phone or answer that email.
100%, because it is a community of people who do love music and will help you love it too.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.